Hello everyone, so welcome back to another video. This is Gundam Build Divers Re-Rise, episode number 25, and there's a lot to dive into here. Lots of fun stuff, lots of feels again. Oh, where to start? Okay, so let's put it this way. Getting started with this, all of the build-up that we've had up until now, all the like mature storyline that people didn't really like, or some people didn't like, it's all built up to this point. And the answer, or the question is the payoff worth it? And honestly, I think it is. So this is going to be getting into it. So we have the archery ceremony with Hinata taking place at the same time as the final mission. And let's just dive into this and get this out of the way first, because I had to do research on this. The ceremony that she's taking part in, I tried to research, and the only thing that I can find is that it's a coming-of-age ceremony for young people in Japan that has declined over the years because of the fact that it costs an incredible amount to get dressed, get done up in makeup and things like that. Generally, it's a very expensive ceremony, but it's to celebrate the journey into adulthood, and as a result, a lot of things take place. There's a lot of celebration by family members and friends and people in attendance that take a lot of photos and everything else, and that's what we're seeing here. It wasn't properly conveyed in the show, but we get to see it. And also, Hinata's section of it is specifically to show off the mastery and skills using traditional Japanese bows and arrows to train the body and the mind, or at least that's what it's supposed to represent. So she's supposed to, at this point, have a strong mind and be able to channel her feelings into a bow and be able to hit the target properly. But that comes into importance with the final mission here, because they were on about the feelings being shared between Hiroto and Hinata and everybody else, really. And that whole thing of having a calm mind, being focused on your objective, and being able to overcome whatever gets in your way and be able to triumph. That's exactly what this is about. There's no sort of regret. There's no sort of mourning in this one. Not heavily anyway. Instead, this is all about focusing on the goal ahead of you. So, now with that out of the way, let's get into all the Gundam stuff. Oh my god. Okay, so first off, we see Masaki come back with his Tetrium Gundam, I think it's called. And everybody gets ready. We've got the resistance that is still on Eldora planning to do some sort of distraction, which we find out gets Alice's attention really early on. He sends forces to intercept them, and it's all they can really do. But what they do is they make giant Gundam carvings, which they've already done previously, but on a smaller scale, and hide them under tarpaulins. And the idea is to grab Alice's attention, so he thinks that's where the Gundam team is, and then he can eliminate them early on. Well, he falls for it hook, line, and sinker, and as a result, the Re-Rise team get into orbit, and this is both a really amazing part, but also kind of hits you in the feels when you think about it a little bit more than just looking at the spectacle, you know, because this episode is a lot of spectacle and a lot of really nicely placed audio to really punctuate certain scenes. Like, for instance, they use the Neptate armor, or the Neptune armor, to get into orbit. And it's the one thing that Hirato's never been able to complete, primarily because of Eve not being there anymore. And the idea is they're going to use the Vulture Lumia system, hope I've pronounced that right, that's on its backpack to get into orbit. And even that causes them trouble, because they don't have enough strength in the system to get it out of the grav well. To which they end up having to use the Rex Buster that Pa has, and also the ex-Valkylander's Gundranzam to just about break orbit. And then, just at the last minute when they need help, that's when Eve comes back and helps them again. And the music, the main action sequence that I've said I really liked the music for, they use that music to punctuate this, so you know it's kicking off and it's getting into stuff and trying to make it hyped up and really exciting early on. But the way that they use that song there is so good, and then we calm down as we get into space. But even Hiroto knows that this is potentially the last time he'll see or think about Eve properly. And I say this because the way that Eve comes back and helps them at the very end of the exit into space, I feel like this is Eve herself, or at least a part of herself, maybe a bit of her spirit or whatever you could call it, maybe a bit of data was left in that frame, and that's why he didn't want to finish it. You know, it's a memory of her that he enjoyed but could never finish it because he didn't want to say goodbye, you know. And by not finishing it, he doesn't let go. You know, he doesn't get over the grieving, and he still tortures himself a little bit by going on about it over and over and over again, but he still has that connection. You know, he's still reluctant to say goodbye to Eve. And when they break orbit, that's when the system shuts down, and you can see it kind of short-circuiting, and he does say goodbye to Eve then, and thanks her for getting them to where they need to be. And then the armor slowly falls into the shadow of the planet, and that is kind of upsetting. That it had me choking up a little bit. But then we get onto the major point, which is the final battle. Everything has led up to this point. How do we approach this? Well, we saw in the last episode that they had practiced this over and over and over again with the best of the best in GBN, and they managed to overcome it. So they have to, looking at that and looking at what they're up against and how it all turns out, sure, they didn't have it easy, and sure, it seemed like it was easy. A little bit anyway. I was thinking about it on my first watch and thinking, you know what, this seems almost a little bit too easy that they've done this. They didn't really face too many problems. But going back and looking at it, you've got the exit into the atmosphere, which was a problem and shorted out one set of armor, which we can say wasn't really combat worthy by the look of it, or at least wasn't designed for combat based on how it's used. And especially how the original is used in Seed, in Stargazer. If I remember rightly, it's not a combat mobile suit, it's mainly for space exploration. So that keeps in the whole line that it's supposed to be peaceful. But the rest of the fight is overcoming massive amounts of grunts and Psycho-esque Daughtresses, and then the three primary threats, which are the fake mobile suits by Alice. And when you think about how much they've done beforehand in terms of training, how well that's gone, and what they've had to overcome in GBN, no way this was going to add up to anything as difficult as that. And the way that they make it seem not just an easy win, or at least they make it more satisfying and explain it so it doesn't feel as cheap, is that they use all of the strengths that they have and all of the weaknesses that they find out about Alice to their advantage. And the reason why I say this is because we see stuff like Pa meeting with everybody that knows anything about Trans Am, or at least to a great extent from the original cast. We could see Ogre chiming in because Ogre used a lot of Trans Am in the original. We get to see Sharia chiming in on it. We get to see everybody talking about Trans Am in this episode and what could possibly be done with a mobile suit that doesn't run out because the computer, Alice, hasn't planned for this. He's just taken these plans for the mobile suit and he doesn't really know how they work properly. So, of course, he's going to be more like a robot and he's just going to do stuff just for the sake of it being powerful. Well, of course, we find out that, one, his pattern for attack is really plain because he just wants power. He's not using anything else, really, so he's just using the overwhelming power of Trans Am. And two, we find out that he's not really accounted or guaranteed on the fact, or thought about the fact, that Trans Am eventually, after its active time, has to shut down the GN drive, otherwise the GN drive will explode. And because of that, Pa gets a little bit of an easier time dealing with the mobile suit that he's facing, which was really cool considering the last time, we only saw the enemy that he was fighting using Transam for a little bit. So it was cool getting to see the ex-Valkylander stand quite a good chance and using its Transam sparingly compared to its opponent. And I really liked the way that they thought about that, about how they would counter something that had seemingly infinite Transam. Then we had Hiroto that had a get out of jail free card at one point. He's getting caught by a psycho daughtress, and then is helped by Quadon and Masaki, who is riding on the back of Quadon, dual wielding beam rifles and beam sabers and just slashing through everything in the path as a sort of like a backup unit. That was what their role was, and that was really fun to see. We got to see Mei doing some really crazy stuff with the Wodon pod. I thought she would have swapped out units, but we'll get to that later. We get to see the Wodon pod being used almost like a video game console at one point as a remote vehicle that can be used by Mei's mobile doll form. And that was really cool because she ended up saving Hiroto as well and defending him. We get to see Kazami doing the best that he can, and the best part is we get to see his transformation here. The way this was translated, I don't think it makes sense, so I'm going to go over it anyway. So, the fake new Gundam is giving him loads of problems with the funnels all over the place, and Kazami, in the translation that we got on YouTube, says something along the lines of, okay, these funnels are giving me problems. What if I become a funnel too? And then he flies off. Now, that could be a reference to the English dub of G Gundam with the Wonderbug moment. If you've seen G Gundam. If you haven't, at one point, we get Domon that's having problems with one of his fights, and an old man tells him a tale of a Wonderbug, and Domon's line afterwards is he needs to become a Wonderbug to and think like a Wonderbug to overcome his enemy. So that's what it kind of reminded me of. But I'm thinking more along the lines of Kazami's more on about the fact that the way that the funnels move, they're incredibly mobile and he can't keep up with them. So I think it's more along the lines of, these funnels are incredibly mobile, I can't keep up with them, what do? I need more mobility, maybe I'll be like a funnel too. Then he transforms and slams into the fake new Gundam and just shoots it point blank with its chest-mounted beam cannon and completely tears through it in one shot. Seriously, over the course of this series, Kazami has become a really competent pilot, and it's really nice to see him like actually being cool. We get to see he has a problem with streaming, obviously, because he's afraid of looking uncool, as he calls it. And he explains this to Maya before they leave for this mission. And Maya's like, I don't mind, because you seem pretty cool to me. So they've obviously got some sort of relationship going on there, where she really likes him. But Kazami learns that, sometimes stuff that you do is going to be uncool, but you've got to have the courage to do what you can anyway. So he streams it, and he's streaming everything. And as this is going on, we get to see Maggie chiming in and coming up with a backup plan just in case. And originally I was like, what's going on here? I wonder what they're planning. And we get to see this later on, and that bit is fantastic on its own. But we'll get around to the very end here, where they beat all of their opponents, and the only thing there is left is the massive beam cannon that's been charging up. And, there's no other thing up his sleeve. So they start getting ready to counter this beam cannon, and the way that they counter it is by finally combining all of the mobile suits, which is something that's been alluded to for a couple of episodes, and I couldn't quite put my finger on what they were going to do to combine all the mobile suits, but the final combined Re-Rise Gundam is actually pretty cool, and I say that with a bit of a reluctance still, because it's a mismatch of a lot of different parts, which in some frames looks a little bit weird, but some of the frames that I've chosen to show here look pretty good and show off really good shots of it, including the final the final opponent that they do end up coming into contact with the Re-Rise Gundam to show you just how good it is. After they've combined the strength of Par's ability to fly, Mei's ability to defend, and Kazami's overwhelming strength of his mobile suit, with the extra hidden weapons here and there, because that comes into play with Hiroto's planet system to combine all of them into one giant mobile suit. They end up fighting another Psycho Daughters, and this is where we get to see they stop a beam with the mobile suit's bare hand, which I can only assume is Mei's eye field kicking in there. But it looks really good. And then you have the giant arms that just swing around and punch straight into this thing. And we find out that in one of the shots, I had to take a close look at this, on the arms are Kazami's Aegis Gundam legs, and sure enough, a giant beam saber comes out of the leg, and they just slice straight through this thing, and it looks so good in the still shot that I capped here for it. But after the final hurdle is all said and done, we get to see a match off between the beam cannon and the mobile suit, and it's like, okay, well, what can we do here to stop this beam? And it's a case of, we're just going to pour all our feelings and our mobile suit's power into this one shot, and sure enough, they just fire this giant ass beam in what looks like a super mode, and they have a beam battle, which results in Alice getting completely annihilated in his control room. And while this is going on, we get to see Alice regretting, or partially regretting what's going on, kind of wondering when he'll go to sleep, and when he'll be able to stop defending the planet. And we get to see a close-up of the ancient Eldorans with what looks like Freddy. I lightly skimmed over this, but when Freddy's talking to Alice in the episode, it takes a lot of courage and strength to talk to Alice the way that Freddy did. Like, I'm glossing over this, or I did gloss over it, but when you look back at the episode, you have Freddy saying to Alice, like, look, no matter what you've done, you were part of the planet's defense system, you were with the Ancients, you're technically supposed to be protecting us, so, you know, whatever you've done, we can kind of forgive you. Just do us a favor and go to sleep, and we'll protect the planet from now on. You don't have to do it. And the amount of courage and feelings at that point that Freddy must have had, because he's lost, like, family members, he's lost friends, he's lost a lot of his own people to Alice, and then to turn around and be like, look, we can kind of forgive you if you just give it a rest and let us deal with everything. Yeah, I felt for him though. A lot of feelings in that one moment. But as everything comes to wrap up, the cannon explodes because of this giant shot from the Re-Rise Gundam, with everybody watching it on stream, and all the pressure that they've had on them trying to do this mission. When it all's said and done, the cannon's just blown up. Alice has left it in a wreck in his own control room, and this is where Masaki and Crowdown land on the remains of it and are just like, look, if you keep this up, we'll come back again and again and again to defeat you. And this is the surprise moment, because I was genuinely thinking, no, this is it, we're all over now, we're done, we've destroyed the cannon, he's got nothing else left. And sure enough, with Alice more or less being like, yeah, I think I'm done here, this is getting a bit annoying, you know, what can I do about this? There's got to be something else I can do, because you keep coming back, you people with Gunpla just keep coming back over and over and over again and stopping me. I'm just trying to do my job. Just let me do my job. And then he decides, you know what, the next best thing is to just go and defeat the people of Gunpla directly. So he hacks his way into GBN, and we get to see the admin again in the control room. And sure enough, all this crazy traffic comes in from outside GBN. They get this weird signal, and Alice starts invading with all these ships that I can't quite place the design of, but they look like ELS ships or what was it, ELS or ESL ships from Gundam 00, the movie. I can't remember which way around the letters are meant to be there. I'll probably get corrected in the comments. But yeah, we've got all these weird alien ships coming in. We've got all these other stuff like the Vegan mobile suits and the strike daggers that we've seen already. And some Daughtresses, and he's just like, yeah, I'm going to take this over, no problem. And then this is the best and most satisfying moment of all of the episode, because after all this, we get to see what Maggie's plan was. Maggie's plan was a contingency just in case he happened to get into GBN somehow. And the plan just involves getting everybody to combat him. So Alice comes in and he's got this like small force, or what looks like a small force, and he's right next to the Avalon base, and he's just like, right, I'm gonna take you guys head on. And then all of a sudden, everyone from Avalon surrounds him, and you can just see the absolute terror in his eyes when you see he's outnumbered about, I'm gonna say 20 to 5 maybe. But just the sheer shock of him being completely outnumbered, and then everyone in GBN is basically like, hey asshole, welcome to GBN. Oh, it's so funny. So funny. I absolutely love that payoff. But yeah, it was a really fantastic second to last episode from what I can tell. And I don't know what's going to happen in the final fight. We get a preview of it, and the sneak preview shows Alice fighting everybody as you'd expect. We get to see a lot of mobile suit cameos. We also get to see the Astray, the new Astray variant that I've been on about in maize colors, that may actually be the new suit for May, but I'm not entirely sure. It depends. So I'm looking forward to next episode. If it's as good as the previous episodes have been, it's going to be great. Obviously, when we get to the very end of the series, I'm going to give my final thoughts on it. I've been so happy with it so far, if you can't tell. Anyway, what did you guys think of this episode? I'll see you in the comments section. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Bye!